All right. How will you save the youth? Hold
Uh,
on.
just by promoting education, promote good energy, good vibes, and showing kids different ways than how the media portrays things, and show them it's not all about the money, cars, clothes, fame, etc., etc.
I actually met him through the manual in high school, and we had just basically just bonded off some all fashion and music really. Like we had this common things like I like to grow from people, and he had something I can grow from. At that time, we related on fashion, and it was cool. We had basically became real good friends. Like I knew all of his friends. If you see Ramsey, you saw me. If you saw me, you saw Ramsey. Went to the same school together. I mean, we did just about everything together. My brother, for real.
He's my confidant. That's one of like first people I met when I was in college, and from the first day we met, we joked around a little bit, and ever since we've just been hip to hip. That's my bro. I love him, literally with all my heart.
Freshman year, we went to Easter show. Freshman year, he came through. That's where I met him and Thurlow, Zeke, everybody met the freshman year. That's our man since day one, since then, and kick it, do things, just always go around. We live, not too far from each other. Just kick it, come through, and Ramsey, me, that's just that's family. That's like my brother for real, like brother from another, like knew him for a lot of transition parts of my life and everything. Same as says through college, you go through wild things and everything in there. So we still kept, the friendship between school and then, after school. We live in the same neighborhood and everything.
As far as what he means to me, he means a whole lot. Maybe more than any other person outside of my family. Definitely consider him my best friend. A large part of my personality or who I am comes from Ramsey. Our sense of humor. I don't think I laugh as hard at anything anybody else says. And I can't imagine anybody else laughing as hard as what he says, some of the dumb stuff he says.
So October 16th, I moved into my house that I'm living in now, and Ramsey was supposed to help me move in. Ramsey is my brother, like number one friend type thing. That's like my rock. And so he was supposed to help me. Move in, and he couldn't move in. He couldn't help me because his car was in the shop. And so I moved in by myself, and he was supposed to come through later on that day. And so I didn't hear from him, but I was like, all right, whatever, I'll talk to him tomorrow.
I was living in Boston, and one of my high school friends had mentioned something about Ramsey, and it wasn't really good. You can sort of get a vibe that something was off, something was wrong. So myself, he and Ramsey used to ball together back in high school, and that's how we know each other. And reached out to him, and basically by word of mouth, he had heard that he had a bad accident, like a very bad accident, to the point where he was hospitalized. And when things like this don't really happen to you, like extreme things like this, you don't know how to react. And I think when I first heard the news, it was sort of like disbelief.
I got a text from my ex-girlfriend the day after it happened. She told me that she lives near him and she saw the ambulance outside his house that night, but she didn't know why or how or what happened. So I called up a mutual friend, Isaiah. He let me know. We went up there and saw him at the hospital that day. And we just been hanging in there ever since.
I remember waking up Sunday morning. His mom actually called me off his phone. Ramsey never calls. He never calls. When he calls, it's usually pretty random, but he called. Well, his mom called from his phone and told me that he was in the hospital, and to sort of spread the word. And I didn't think it was that serious. I'm just thinking he's in the hospital, he'd get well, I'll be there after I work. After I work like an hour or two, end up going to the hospital and got the news, and I spread the news throughout the inner circle of our friends, and everybody was devastated. Terrible thing.
I'm on the bus and I get a phone call from Isaiah, and Isaiah's like, do you have time to talk? And I'm like, nah. I'm like transferring buses, like I'm gonna call you back. And he's just like, okay. And I'm like, all right. So I didn't think anything of it.
Isaiah had texted me while I was at work, telling me Ramsey was in the hospital. Immediately I texted Ramsey, asked him if he was okay, what was going on. His mother responded, letting me know what was going on.
I was at work, and all I can remember is just receiving the text like, hey, you guys need to just show up at the hospital. And when I heard, why he was there, it was kind of just like, okay, well, it's a food allergy. I'm assuming like maybe just like a swollen lip or like something just small. And then when I later received a text saying, hey, it's a little bit more serious than everyone's thinking, we actually need to show up, I was just like, okay, this is huge. This is big.
So when I found out, we have a little group chat, little text that we talk about, just have conversations with. Zeke hit me up and told me, he's like, yeah, Ramsey, peanut allergy in the hospital. So I was just thinking, like, okay, that happened to him before. So I was like, all right, it's all good, everything be okay. And as I'm gonna go make my way to the hospital later on that day. Then like an hour or so later, Zeke called me. Zeke actually called me and said, no, you gotta come through, like, it just got real. I was like, what? Like, what you mean? He's like, yeah, just come through. So as soon as I got that no, it had to be, serious and that. So then I went up there, saw Zeke, and then that's when, after I saw Zeke, I saw Ramsey's family there as well. Then after a little later, Zane saw everybody that was, all of us that were real cool to start coming in, and that's when his mother actually told me exactly like what happened when we went to eat.
It's a peanut allergy. He ate something he wasn't supposed to eat, and it was just him and his mom in the house. And Ramsey's like 6'3", 6'5", like he's a tall guy, and his mom is like 5'1". So he's like, I can't breathe. And then he went outside because he's trying to get some air, and his heart stops. And so he's in cardiac arrest for 15 minutes. It takes it takes the ambulance 15 minutes to get here, which is like not even a mile away. And then they come get him and rush him to the hospital.
When I later received a text saying, hey, it's a little bit more serious than everyone's thinking, we actually need to show up, I was just like, okay, this is huge. This is big. And I just can't even remember like what was racing through my mind. It was just so much. Like, I didn't know what to expect when going into the hospital that evening.
Then we called and texted everybody else who's our mutual friends to make sure people had a way to get there, had transportation to get there, just to make sure everything was okay. So we just had to make sure Zeke hit up everybody in the group chat, let everybody know exactly what was going on.
When things like this don't really happen to you, like extreme things like this, you don't know how to react. And I think when I first heard the news, it was sort of like disbelief. And luckily, I think a few weeks later, I was actually going to be in DC, and I managed to stop by the hospital with my folks to actually go see him.
So I guess at that point is when I realized the severity of the situation. So for me, it was like that whole day was kind of awkward because it was just kind of weird not knowing. Like, I could sense, like when Isaiah texted me originally, I didn't think that much of it. I'm like, oh, Ramsey's in the hospital. It's like probably like a 1 or 2 day thing. He'll bounce back. But then when I actually texted him and his mother responded, like I could just sense the worry.
It's just crazy to me how it could be a person that's close to you and something like that could happen. But at the same time, it's like you gotta learn from it, because it's life, stuff like that does happen. And I would never thought it would be Ramsey. Out of any, you would never think it would be your friend. You know what I mean? You would never think it would be you or your friend.
for the first 2 weeks, like, we're just there every day. Like, all of us, we're there every day. You know, I'm like taking off of work. Everyone's taking off of work because we're just like, oh, he'll be good. He's just unconscious. He'll wake up out of it. Everything's A-okay. And then things get a little bit more serious. And I think like after those 2 weeks, the doctor let us know that 75% of his brain was compromised. So 75% of his brain was damaged. So at this point, he's kind of, you know, not responsive. He can't talk at all, can't move, can't walk at all.
It was definitely one of the most devastating states I've ever seen him in. For people who know Ramsey he's full of energy. He's full of charisma. He's full of jokes. He's not even that funny, but he, you know when Ramsey's around, and it's hard seeing him in that condition. It's hard seeing him in his current condition.
As I went in, all I could do is just sit there and just cry and think about like how fast life could possibly just flash in front of your eyes. Like one day you're joking around with your best buds and pals, and the next day like anything could happen. You're almost close to losing them. And I just will never forget that feeling, and it's something that you never get over, kind of, when you're close to losing someone that you really care about.
The part that really, for me, that got to me was like seeing him, and then really understanding how serious it was. Because going in, you know, I'm thinking it's gonna be like a one day thing, or I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna speak to him, but we found out that wasn't the situation, and we are where we are today.
And as time progressed, I just kept telling myself, you know, in time he'll get better, because he's strong, and I know that he'll pull through. So with that in mind, I just kind of just kept thinking that and kept pushing forward and praying. That was the most key thing. That's the most important thing that I've been doing thus far, is just praying, and knowing that, you know, eventually he'll come around. It may not be as soon as we all want it to, but in time. And I think that's kind of what made my rainy days turn into sunny ones.
When I understood how good of a friend Ramsey was to me, and how much I appreciate our friendship, was probably like, probably since I've met Ramsey, I don't think I've went at least probably like 3 days without talking to him. So after like that first week, it really got surreal for me, because I missed him. It was like a genuine miss. Like, and that's something that you don't really understand with your friends. Like, you don't really think that you miss your friends until you miss them. And like, one thing I know I told myself after the situation happened is like, it's not a bad thing to let your friends know that you love them, because you never know. Like, the last time I talked, like, we were together literally 3 days before the incident happened, and maybe since that day texted 1 or 2 times since then. And to me, I just wish that if I can still talk to Ramsey, he can't respond to me, but there's one thing I wish I could have done, like, just as a friend, just let him know how much he meant to me, how much I appreciate our friendship, and that I do love him.
Tell whoever you know you love them now. I appreciate you, bro, for doing this. You know, because you never know what could happen. Today ain't promised, tomorrow ain't promised, the next minute ain't promised. So you just got to give thanks in every moment, because you never know what could happen. And just be humble, be humble, be humble.
Right now, it's hard for all of us, knowing that, you know, we're not able to joke around and do the things that we're used to doing with him. And so it's been a lot for me, but I think about all those good times, and I think about the times that we first met, and how much it means to me, how much it means knowing that God placed him in my life for a reason. So I'm just lucky to have crossed paths with someone like him. Just a beautiful soul and spirit. I love you, bro. Just know that. And we're here. We're always going to be here, no matter what.
As far as what he means to me, he means a whole lot. Maybe more than any other person outside of my family. Definitely consider him my best friend. A large part of my personality or who I am comes from Ramsey. Our sense of humor. I don't think I laugh as hard at anything anybody else says. And I can't imagine anybody else laughing as hard at what he says, some of the dumb stuff he says. My tendency is to be more of a loner and to myself. But being such good friends with him, being the kind of guy where he is always plugged in, looking for that what's new, what's cool, what's hip, and he just passes that all on to me, allows me to get along in social situations a lot better than I would if I hadn't been friends with him. He definitely means a whole lot to me.
We're hoping that through this initiative and through our efforts that we can help alleviate some of the pain and some of the stress that his family is going through, and trying to make sure that Ramsey pulls through. And we're going to do everything we can do for him.
Yeah, right now he's in a rehabilitation center, and we try to go see him as much as we can. But this happened in October, and so now he has like $1 million plus in hospital bills. And so, you know, us being the closest to him, we're trying to figure out how we can help his family, pretty much. Because we don't have $1 million, but I'm pretty sure that we all can chip in and then get that $1 million.
So you got to keep on pushing on and keep on hoping for the best. And that's all I can really say.
Rambo forever.